This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi, so I would like to share with you original thought about the Gemara in Tainis Chav Tesam Beis, where the Gemara says Tisha B'Av that falls out on Shabbos, a person could eat, a person could drink as much as they want. Umala al shulchanoi afilu kesuda shlomo b'shatoi. You could put up on your table even like the Suda of Shlomo Hamelech. And yesterday we did a clip, we quoted Rav Hutner. By the way, Rav Hutner is found in the Sefer Hazikaron of the Pachad Yitzchak, Siman Chav Daled, who quotes one of the Gedolei HaAchronim, that the Gemara in Bava Metzia says that the Sudasai of Avraham was greater than the Suda of Shlomo. Because the Gemara says the Suda of Avraham, everybody got their own cow. And by the Suda of Shlomo, not so. So why would the Gemara say that this Shabbos, by Shalosh Shudas this week, I'm very happy about this. You know why? Usually Tisha B'Av is very hard, because before the fast, you have to eat like a potato blintz and maybe some baked ziti. How are you supposed to fast after that, But this week, you could have a whole chulent before. You could have meat. And, it's enough fuel to keep you going for a few days. The Gemara says, "Yikvimala al shulchanai afilu kesuda shlomo b'shatoi." And the question Rav Hutner brings from one of the Gedolei HaAchronim is, why do we focus on Shlomo? Why not Avraham Avinu? And Rav Hutner answered, and we quoted this yesterday, that there are really two aspects of the Sudas HaMafsekes. Number one, and there are really two aspects of Tisha B'Av. One is not eating. You're not allowed to eat. You can't eat on Tisha B'Av. And we have to limit our eating on Erev Tisha B'Av. Right? We know, normally on Erev Tisha B'Av, in the meal before the fast, you can't have more than 2 cooked dishes. But there's another halacha, and that is the Gemara says in Daf Lamed that if you usually eat with 10 people, you should eat with 5 people. And Tosha says the reason is because you have to be mamayid in your kavod. So, says Rav Hutner, the Brisa says on Daf Chav Tesam Beis that on Erev Tisha B'Av Shechaliyos B'Shabbos, by the Sudas HaMafsekes, you could eat whatever you want. You don't have to minimize your eating. But the other halacha, that normally you have to minimize the kavod you have by your meal, that you also don't have to minimize on Tisha B'Av. Namely, says Rav Hutner, even though normally by the Sudas HaMafsekes, if you eat with 10 people, you have to eat with 5, but by this year, Mala al shulchanai afilu kesuda shloimai, not in terms of the quantity of food, but rather in terms of the number of people seated at the table, where you don't have to be mamayid in your kavod at all. Meaning the Gemara in Bava Metzia that talks about the Suda of Avraham being greater than Shlomo, that's only in terms of the quantity of food that was served. But in terms of the kavod of the meal, the Suda of Shlomo was greater. And Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen even says there's a machlokes by Shalosh Shudas, whether between the Magen Avram, the Taz and the Eliyah Rabbah, exactly whether you have to be mamayet, eating it publicly or not. And according to this, one would be allowed to eat the Shalosh Shudas Suda even publicly. But I would like to offer an original interpretation why the Gemara says that this Shabbos you could even be mala al shulchanai kesudas shloimai b'shatoi. And that is, if you remember the Haftarah Parshas Truma, it says, and it was in the year 480, after the Jewish people left Egypt, and Shlomo Hamelech sat on his throne. And the Chidah asks, why does the Navi emphasize that Shlomo Hamelech sat on his throne in the year 480? And the Chidah says that the number 480 is a very important number. Lilis, which is the force of Tumah, is Gematria 480. And until the year 480, the Jewish people were still plagued by an incomplete reflection of the Malchus Shamayim, namely the Kavod HaShechina that was manifested in the Beis HaMikdash and through Klal Yisrael was incomplete until the year 480, where they completely squelched the entire Koiches HaTumah, and Shlomo Hamelech sat on his throne, and that was what we call Sihara B'Shleimusa. The moon was full. The moon being full means as much as humanly possible, we reached what is called the Tikkun HaAchron, and thereby the Mikdash was b'binyanai in the greatest sense that it ever was in the history. When did that happen? When Shlomo sat on his throne. The greatest time of Binyan Beis HaMikdash was Shlomo Hamelech. Shlomo Hamelech represented is Sihara B'Shleimusa. It's very interesting because we know that when Shabbos comes, there's no Chorban Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara says in Tainis, both the first Beis HaMikdash and the second Beis HaMikdash were destroyed Matzoi Shabbos. And the Maral explains that is because so long as you're headed toward Shabbos, you can't have Chorban Beis HaMikdash. You can only have Chorban Beis HaMikdash when you're moving away from Shabbos. Because what the Beis HaMikdash is in place, Shabbos is in time. Shabbos is the Beis HaMikdash of time. That is why in L'cha Doidi, says Rav Moshe Shapiro, since Chorban Beis HaMikdash is only possible moving away from Shabbos, the building of the Beis HaMikdash is most appropriate as you're headed toward Shabbos. That is why in L'cha Doidi we barely talk about Shabbos, we talk about the Beis HaMikdash. And we ask Hashem to rebuild Yerushalayim, and rebuild the temple, Mikdash Melech Yer Melucha, and to restore Nevuah, Uri Shedaberi, and to rebuild the Malchus, and to restore the Malchus Beis David. Because moving away from Shabbos means Chorban, moving toward Shabbos is Binyan Beis HaMikdash. Shabbos is the Beis HaMikdash of time. Therefore, what the Gemara means to convey is when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, we are so removed from Chorban Beis HaMikdash. There is no Chorban on Shabbos. There is no Tisha B'Av on Shabbos. When Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, you know how you can eat. Like Shlomo Hamelech. Not to convey the amount of food. Not to convey that you don't have to diminish your honor. To convey that you know how much it's considered like the Beis HaMikdash is standing on Shabbos and there's no Chorban. You can enjoy a Suda like Shlomo Hamelech. Shlomo Hamelech represents Siyara B'Ishlamusa, the complete binyan and tikkun of Beis HaMikdash. On Shabbos, this Shabbos by Shalosh Shudas, there is no Chorban at all. You know how you can enjoy it? Like the greatest king who sat on the throne by the Beis HaMikdash, without any thought, the furthest removed of Chorban possibly is Shlomo Hamelech Suda. The Suda of Shlomo is the greatest example of Binyan Beis HaMikdash. Is the furthest thing from Chorban, and therefore the Gemara says when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, Male al Shulchanai afilu kesuda Shlomo b'shatai. Okay, one more.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.